Okay, good morning everyone. Thanks for logging on to this webinar about the Intertrade Ireland Challenge Programme. This will last roughly about an hour, and during that hour we're going to cover two main topics. I'm going to explain the methodology that's used in the programme in a section called Achieving Ambitious Business Growth, and then I'll speak about the Challenge Programme specifically, so what you get by embarking on the Challenge Programme as a company and what is required of you. There's a question box on your control panel. If you do have any questions, feel free to type them in there, and I'll try and address them for you in one section at the end of the presentation. There's a couple of small poll type questions that we do for you. So I ask a question and you answer, so just wait for those coming up. The options will appear on your screen, and if you can be good enough to respond to those, then that'll help with the flow of the presentation. So we'll just get started. As I said, the first section is called Achieving Ambitious Business Growth, and I suppose we want to ask the question, what strategic approaches are most successful for businesses? So this is what people want to know. Our clients typically ask that question. So before you embark on that route, you really have to define what we mean by successful. Well, more specifically, I think most SMEs would target these two areas. So success to them is both turnover growth and profitability. So profitable growth. So what I want to ask you, the first teaser, is what grows the top line most significantly. So what do you believe grows the top line most significantly? Answer number one is increasing loyalty from existing customers, and answer number two is getting new customers. Now, this is, we are asking you to pick one. Clearly, both of these things are good things, and we're not saying that in reality you would choose one entirely over the other, but as a focus area, as a strategic focus area, which of these two do you believe would be mostly right most of the time? And the key thing is significant growth. So what is the opportunity for significant growth? So just give me a moment, I'll just start the poll. Here we go. Okay, so you should see the two questions in front of you now. So if you could just respond for me. Okay, a few of those coming in now. Okay, I think just a few more to come. So if you haven't pushed the button, push the button now. Okay, that'll do. Okay, so you should see in front of you now the results of that poll in terms of what the webinar attendees responded. So 67% of you, so around about 2/3, are saying that increasing loyalty from existing customers is the best way. 33% are saying getting new customers. So back to the presentation now. Actually, the data would support answer number two, getting new customers. So you can see on this slide the results of a piece of research that shows the average growth rate of a certain number of businesses put against their number of new customers that they had secured over the past 3 years. So you can see the businesses on average had shrunk, that had very few numbers of new customers. An average number had a reasonable growth rate, but there was a significant growth rate there for businesses that were able to secure lots of new customers. So getting new customers offers the biggest opportunity to achieve significant business growth. Now, from running these webinars, from running these events rather, in a live audience, we got a lot of logic about both of these answers, and as I said, both of them are good in their own way at certain times, but the fact that increasing loyalty is low risk often comes out because we have the customers already, and these things are all absolutely relevant. But in terms of the biggest potential, this is what we're talking about here, getting new customers is the one that is supported by the data. Just going a bit further than that, so specifically number of new customers, or number of customers was found to be around about 3 times more important than amount bought per customer, and amount bought per customer is our definition of loyalty in this case. That is because, for these reasons that I'm giving here, so if you sell food, that might be the first of those options. If you sell alcohol perhaps, or other drinks and beverages, it would be the middle one. For most of us, it's probably about the level of budget, but your customers can only eat or drink or spend so much on the products or services that you have. So you have a share of their stomach versus your competitors, you have a share of their throat perhaps. As I said, for most of us, it's a share of their pocket. So if you achieve that significant level of growth, then the biggest opportunity is actually in getting more stomachs, more throats, or more pockets. There's another way to achieve turnover growth, and clearly that is to look at new products and services. And the same piece of research looked at these areas and put companies' growth rates versus how many new or improved products or services had they launched in the last 3 years. So you can see the bottom third shows a very low number of new products and services, middle third more growth, and the top third significant growth in relation to the number of new products and services. I always like to point out, for statistic geeks, there's a linear increase in the numbers of new products and services, but an exponential increase in the growth rate of those businesses. So clearly, if you have a reliable and repeatable way of securing significant numbers of new customers and or a reliable, repeatable way of successfully launching new products and services, then your opportunity for significant, and I do mean significant, business growth, over iterative growth, is improved. So my next question is around about the area of profitability. So exact same format. What do you believe is the most profitable strategy? So the highest margin strategy. Your options are answer number 1, high quality. So we are the highest quality provider of goods and services in the market. Number 2, quick turnaround. So we work in tight timescales and turn things around for the customer very quickly. Answer number 3 is low cost. I should point out that is not our internal costs are lower, it is that we are the lowest cost provider to the customer in the market. So we are cheaper than our competitors. Answer number 4, we create new products and services regardless of market demand. And answer number 5, we listen to our customers and create new products and services around their demands. Okay, so those are your 5 options. Same format as before. I will launch the poll now. So that's at launch now. So if you can just respond for me, I'll just give you a few seconds to do that. Okay, just a couple more people to vote, so if you're going to vote, vote now. Okay, thanks for that. So you should see on your screen now the results of that poll. So 11% of you are saying high quality, same response to low cost, and the biggest chunk of you opting for listen and create around about customer demand. And so back to presentation. Actually, it's answer number 4 the data would support. So it's create regardless of market demand. Now I have to apologise, we're a bit cheeky with the wording of that question. It makes this option sound a little bit cavalier. But the reality is that when you create in a reactive way, specifically around about what the market is demanding, you're already in a more commoditized space because that is exactly the same source of stimuli that your competitors have. So you're more likely to arrive in a space where there is higher levels of competition. So famous quote in front of you just now, Henry Ford, if I'd asked my customers what they wanted, they'd have said faster horses. You can also have plenty of examples like Apple products, which were never actually demanded by the market. So this is where you're truly leading the market with new and different things, where you're able to say we're the experts. Customers don't always know what's possible, and if you get it right, and that is a big if you get it right, then the profitability in that space is higher. So we have a colleague in the US called Doug Hall. He's got a saying that we rather like: if you're not unique, you better be cheap. If you're not unique, you better be cheap. And that's because there is this inescapable continuum in business between commodity at one end and monopoly at the other. At the commodity end of the spectrum, you get the same stuff as everyone else, and the only choice the customer has left is on price. At the other end of the spectrum, monopoly, we're the only people that have the stuff, and there exists market demand. We all know what monopolies can do. They can charge more money, and therefore your profitability when you're at that end of the spectrum is higher. So here's the data behind that. The options that you had in that question are mapped onto this piece of research. Low cost clearly has the tightest margins, but the things that most people hold dear are the ones in the middle here. So quick delivery, voice of customer, high quality. These are dwarfed, as you can see, by the chart on the right-hand side, which is what we're deeming innovation. So the definition of innovation in this case is as I described. So we are leading the market with new and different things, versus voice of customer in the middle, which you should note, these guys in the voice of customer space still are creating, commercializing new products and services, but they're doing so in a reactive fashion. They're listening to the market as their competitors are and reacting with new products and services that fit a stated need. So, typically when we first engage with companies, they show us a picture that looks a bit like this, or they describe a picture that looks a bit like this. So, up until this point, they have had a trajectory of some sort, so they may have grown or they may have not have grown, but they're on a trajectory. They then have some aspirational target for some point in the future. Now, it's an arbitrary amount of time depending on the business. I've put 5 years on this chart. But they will say that, over this period of time, say 5 years, they want to get right up here. So this aspirational goal for the future. But actually, if you ask how they're going to achieve that, and they respond by saying, well, we've been doing pretty well up to this point, we're going to do more of that, we're going to train some people, we're going to get better at sales, better at marketing. So kind of those same improvement measures that have got them in the trajectory that's taken them to this point, you can expect that it will actually only get them to this area over here. And if they did nothing, sales stayed exactly the same, then they would get to this point here. So by doing the same old stuff, and by same old stuff I mean iterative improvement type measures, we can expect normal incremental growth, and we can expect them only to get over here. So therefore there's this big gap, and this big gap must by definition be closed down by new and different things. So new products or services, or indeed customers or markets that we are not currently servicing or delivering today. So closing down that gap over that period of time to get to your aspirational goal is represented by products, services, customers and markets that you're not currently servicing or delivering today. So if we try and get to that aspirational point by doing the same stuff, it kind of reminds you of this insanity quote from Einstein, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So what's useful at this point is to look at a standard strategy tool called Ansop's Grid, which shows us that there are 4 basic strategies that you can adopt. You'll see along the horizontal axis, it talks about products, both existing and new. You might also put services in there. More meaningfully, probably capabilities. So your existing capabilities or new capabilities. And on the vertical axis, it talks about markets. So we sell these products, services, or capabilities to markets, and obviously you have existing ones there or new ones there. So your 4 strategies are as described on the screen, where we sell the same stuff that we've got to the same markets that we're in. That's called market penetration at the top left. When we develop new products, so we keep the market constant and say we know this market really well. We're going to develop new products for that market. Then that's called product development. When we keep the constant as the product or the capability and adapt them for new markets, that's called market development. And right down the bottom right, you've got unrelated diversification. So totally new products or services to totally new markets. Now, I think most people would agree that feels a bit risky, so we know nothing, so taking totally new or inventing totally new things to a market we don't know yet is pretty risky. But for the same and opposite reason, then you would probably say, well, the least risky is market penetration. We know everything. So for the reason I gave earlier, for the reasons we discussed earlier rather, why do we not just do that all the time? Well, the reason is because if we're trying to achieve significant business growth, we know that the data supports, the data that showed you supports, that the biggest opportunity, even though this is limited, is across these two areas. So new markets for our existing capabilities or new products for our existing markets. So remember those charts earlier that showed how being able to create and commercialise new products and services over that 3-year period, or access large numbers of new customers, so new markets, where they had a big kick on the growth rate of those businesses that were researched. So when people talk about innovation as some kind of really aspirational goal, we have a very specific definition of it, and this is it. So new products, services, customers or markets that we are not currently servicing today. That's what we mean by innovation. So we pose a problem to you. If innovation is the key to achieving the growth that companies desire, and it's at the top of the agenda of your government and support agencies, what is it that you think is holding us back? What do you think is holding us back from doing this? Why don't companies innovate? If it can deliver significant growth and it's profitable, why don't companies do this? I'm going to give you a moment just to answer that. It's not a poll this time. If you could use the chat box or the question area on your tool panel, if you can just find that for me. You can throw some responses into that box. Then I'll read them aloud as they come in. Some people saying it's pretty risky. So a couple of people talking about the sort of culture of fear of innovation because of the risk in the organisation. It's very expensive just coming in there. Takes too long. And it's open-ended, so you could invest all this time and money and effort. And again, there's a perception of risk because it might bear no fruit at the end of it. So it's again coming back to the risk or the cost or the amount of time. So these are very, very common responses, the most common responses that we get, in fact. And absolutely, we know this, and we've got a slide for this next, because we know what people are going to say when we ask that question. Things in relation to time or money, and therefore risk. Now, I would love to sit here and say that was unfounded, and you guys don't realise that actually it's not risky, it doesn't take loads of time and money, but actually people's fears are warranted. That is pretty risky. So what I'm going to show you just now, what I'm showing you on your screen at the moment, is a chart that shows level of uniqueness. So along the horizontal axis, the more to the right things become, that means the more unique those products and services were when they hit the market. And up the vertical axis you can see what's called purchase intent, but really what we're saying is meaningfulness to the market. How much do customers care about these products and services? So as you go to the right, they're more unique. As you go north or upwards, they become more meaningful to customers. Customers wanted them. So these are real products and services that were commercialised. And basically what you see here is that those dots that are at the upper end of the vertical axis, these were big successes. And those that are at the bottom end of the vertical axis, these were failures. These were those very, very costly failures that everyone is afraid of. And what you'll notice is that there's a trend here. So the more unique those products and services become, the more the likelihood of big win, so up the top, these big successes, high profitable successes, but also the greater the risk of big loss. So on the left-hand side, you commodity stuff, so same old stuff, and that's a safe zone. So that's where we might, make what our competitors are making, but a little bit better. And on the far right-hand side, these are truly new and unique things that the market was not asking for. And really what companies therefore want to do is access that sexy area at the top right-hand side, but mitigate the risk of falling into the bottom right-hand side where it's very costly and very expensive. So when people have this fear of risk, then it leads to a distinct lack of a culture of innovation in the company. And typically we know human error is high. So I've said on here humans are under 10% successful at picking winning ideas. I'm actually pretty kind with that. It's usually between 3 and 5% successful. What that means is if I threw out a whole bunch of ideas for product concepts in front of you all and asked you to pick which would be the likely winners, you would get it right about sort of 5% of the time. So if it's gut feel that you're using to invest in your innovation efforts, then there are some better ways of spending that money. So even fruit machines, as that says, pay out about 32% of the time. So an answer to this, we would say, is a reliable and repeatable system. So if you're looking for a reliable and repeatable strategy of innovation, then you need to have some kind of systematic way of going about it. So rather than this whole thing being some kind of random art, if it's actually important to your business aspirations, to achieving that ambitious growth, then why not systematise it? Why not have processes within your business? Because you've got processes for HR, you've got processes for finance. If this is that important, then you should have processes for this too. So the good news is that's what this programme is all about, what we're talking about today. So the Intertrade Ireland Challenge Programme teaches businesses and a highly effective system, and for successful businesses that get through to the final stages of it, will come and help you implement those processes. It's a real thing. It's responsible for currently already for over £2 billion sterling in new products and services across the globe. It's got the NIST stamp on it. So what that means is these are the guys that decide how heavy a kilogram is. So the data and evidence that goes into this set of processes has actually been endorsed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the US. And that's because it's actually based on research. So at no point in this whole process do you get opinion. It's neither my opinion nor my colleagues' opinions. This whole set of processes is based on research over a 25-plus year period into two main areas. Area number one, the factors which make products and services succeed or fail. And area number two, the factors that make business development teams effective. So those people in business, what makes them effective at creating and commercialising new things. It's been done by a reverse engineering process. So in that first area, there's tens of thousands of real products and services that have actually been commercialised, that have been reverse engineered to isolate key success factors. So what seems to be present when products and services succeed, or indeed seem to be lacking when they fail. And then the same thinking has been done with business development teams, so innovation teams, if you like, within businesses. So reverse engineering the success and failure of those guys to say what is present when people are successful at these things and what seems to be lacking when they fail. So that combination of tons of information in relation to marketplace success and people success is what we bring together into what we call innovation engineering, which is our innovation system, a set of business processes that you can put in place. Don't take our word for it. At the actual event, this is where we show a video, which is a mashup video showing testimonials from a number of different companies that have already successfully been through this programme. Rather than show you that here and now, because apart from anything I can, but what I've put up on the screen just now is a YouTube link to the Intertrade Ireland YouTube channel, where you can actually see this video and watch it in your own time. And you'll see the title of the video there. So it's just titled Intertrade Ireland Challenge Programme 2012. I did see that someone on the chat window there had requested the slides, or was asking if they can get a hold of the slides. Yes, you can. So if you do want the slides, then just pop it in that chat area, and I'll send. In fact, no, I'll send them out to everyone after the session. Okay, so don't worry about that. So you'll get a copy. Okay, so companies know that is risky, and for companies that have an importance on innovation, they may have tried to put a process in already. And it usually looks something like this. It's a linear thing, which with criteria-based, stages and gates that go in between stage 1 to 2, 3, 4, and beyond. So depending on the complexity of the business, there could be 10 stages or 20 stages. I've put 4 crude stages up here just now. So we've got some consumer research, and then we've got some concept development, and then we've got some R&D, and then we've got finance guys getting involved. And the way it works is, you know, stage 2 can kick it back to 1, or 3 can kick it back to 2 or 1, and so on and so forth, and things go round and round and round. And this is designed to deal with risk, and it does so effectively, and you know, because basically nothing ever gets out of it. So it's got a typical marketplace success of what's on the screen there, about 5 to 15%. As I said, it's designed to deal with cost and risk, but what it does ignore is there's an additional risk, and that's that we have, where we spend all this time trying to study away the risk and get things right, the opportunity flies right by the window. So it ignores this, what I'm saying, the biggest risk of missing the opportunity. So we spend all that money and all that time, and actually we've missed the opportunity. So our approach is what we call simultaneous engineering. So we take all of these stages and wrap them up into these 3 main areas. Everything tends to go into one of these 3 areas, and we deal with all of them all of the time from a micro level at the beginning, and then we build them all up through a series of test and learn exercises. So you'll see those three main areas that we look at are product or service development. So that's the thing that we are trying to commercialise. That's going from a seed idea to making it reality and everything that goes around about that. You can see down at the bottom left, marketing development, so the marketability, the promise, if you like. What are we going to sell or propose to the market that is going to get the market excited to buy our products and services? And down at the bottom right, the business model. So it has to stack up. You know, what price are we going to charge? What are the costs involved? Are there repeat purchase elements to this? All of the metrics and numbers that go around making this a viable business proposition. All 3 of these are linked, so it's useful as changes in one allow the other 2 to be affected, and we deal with all of them all of the time, as I said, from a micro level, and build them up. And what we're trying to get to is something which is significantly strong in all of those areas. The last process, that linear process, really is about putting a seed idea in and saying, let's make that idea work, being very precious about that idea. What this is about testing and learning in each of these 3 areas and allowing the idea to evolve and change as we learn. And what we're saying in this instance, although the words aren't that different, it's a fundamentally different concept. What we're saying here is, let's get to an idea which does work, which may be very different to what we started with, but it's strong. You know, and that's the key to it. So doing it this way, it gives you a big kick, so it goes from that 5% to 45%. Products accelerate to market in a fraction of the time. I'm not just throwing that word in there for effect. Because we're doing a real-world test and learn, as you get positive feedback back, your confidence increases, and as your confidence increases, so does your speed as an individual. So, so things do literally get faster and faster and faster. Contrast that with trying to study away risk. So after 2 years, you may have a big thick plan, but your confidence probably won't be that much higher. It utilises what we call fail fast, fail cheap, which is a methodology to kill costly losers ASAP and allow the winners to develop and evolve and accelerate. You might find things interesting. The word failure appears twice in an innovation methodology, but that is because all ideas are not good ideas. Failure is an inevitable part of the process, and when you accept it from the outset that it is an inevitable part of the process, then when do you want it to happen? Well, obviously you want it to happen as fast and as cheap as possible, so you can spend your scarce resources on other things that might actually have potential for success. So we call that fail fast, fail cheap. What is fail fast, fail cheap? Well, it's a process where we highlight what we call death threats. Now, what you're seeing on your screen at the moment is a series of challenges getting bigger over time, and human nature is often, you probably recognise this, human nature is dealing with the smallest issues first. So people think, okay, we'll deal with all of these small issues. We know there's this big elephant in the room, this big thing. So what we'll do is we'll get all the small issues out of the way so that we can concentrate all our time and effort on this big thing. And actually what we are saying in the fail fast, fail cheap process is, let's ignore these small issues for now, ignore them. They might be the death threats of the future, but let's bring this major death threat to the fore, this major risk area to the fore, and let's see if it's as bad as all that. Let's do some fast, cheap investigation and try and break that death threat down. The definition of a death threat is a major unknown. If you remember back to that answer grid, that risky area was risky because we knew nothing. Okay? It wasn't because it was hard to do, it was because we knew nothing. We didn't know the market, we didn't know the product. People feel that when they hear that description of that business strategy. But often the concept of death threat confuses people because they talk about very hard to do. So they might say to me, Jamie, I have a death threat. The death threat in relation to the product is that this is going to take 20 people 2 years to develop, and that's very costly, and that's a death threat. So actually, I would say it might not be viable to do that, but it's not a death threat because if we know that's how long it's going to take, then it's not a major unknown. A death threat is where we say we don't know where to start. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 years, it could be one person or 20 people. That's a death threat, provided that at the bad end of that continuum, at the bad end of that spectrum, we wouldn't do it. We would kill the project. So what we do with fail fast, fail cheap, is we ask the question, with no time and no budget, what can we do to validate our concerns? No time, and by no time we mean typically about a week, and virtually no budget. So what's no budget to your company? And do some fast, cheap tests to get smarter in relation to this particular death threat. This is not about finding a total solution. This is not about finding a pinpoint answer to this death threat. What it is about is reducing the parameters of unknown. So remember, risk is in relation to the level of unknown. Well, if we reduce the parameters of unknown down to acceptable levels, then it's not a death threat anymore. We haven't solved it. We still have to solve it when we develop the product, but we're not afraid of it anymore. So in my example, we might go from 2 years at the bad end to say, well, do you know what? It's going to take us between 2 and 3 months. Either way, we're okay with that. It's going to take a team of between 4 and 6 people. Either way, we're okay with that now. So we still don't know for sure, but the parameters of unknown and therefore risk have been reduced. Getting a pinpoint answer can be costly, take a lot of time. Reducing unknowns down to acceptable levels can be done very fast and very cheap. So when some investigation is done in this area, the answer is usually just one of 3. So yes, we should continue along our current path. This wasn't as bad as all that, this death threat, so it was unfounded. No, i.e. we should kill the project dead. We found out all that bad stuff was valid. The most common response is yes, but with changes. We're smarter than we were a week ago, and we're going to change some stuff, and that opens up a whole new bunch of death threats, and therefore some more investigations. So if the biggest thing you can probably take away from this presentation, if you want to reduce risk back at your company, there clearly are huge numbers of things that you have to tackle between an idea and launching something in the marketplace. So if you want to know what to focus on now, you ask yourself this: what is the biggest death threat, i.e. the biggest unknown in each of those 3 areas, the product and the promise and the business model? What's the biggest death threat right now in those 3 areas, and what can we do fast and cheap to find out if it's true? So there are 3 major challenge areas. Most people have challenges in these areas. So how do we create ideas, okay, on a systematic scale? Well, we have a system, a set of processes that are informed for creating as many ideas as possible. So it's a volume game at this stage. Then you need a way to evaluate those ideas. So remember, human gut feels bad. So how do we objectively decide which ones have got the highest propensity for marketplace success? And we've got a way of doing that, a system for picking ideas with the highest probability of success. Then how do we get them to market? Right, this is costly and expensive, and it's going to take a lot of time and risky. So we've got a systematized way, and fail fast, fail cheap is part of that, for driving ideas to market with the minimum of time and money and risk. So our actual process is called innovation engineering, and there are 5 stages to that. I always have to give a health warning before showing this slide because it's the most complex slide you'll probably ever see, but I build it up so hopefully you'll get it. So ideas are a bit like a pipeline, a bit like a sales pipeline. The 5 stages are the ideas stage, the define stage, the discover stage, develop and deliver. At the ideas stage, you have ideas just now, they're floating about in people's minds. They're in people's heads, the whole ideas, parts of ideas that can be for all these different things: product, promise, markets, marketing, sales, services. So what we do is we, at the first stage of your project, we'll use a bunch of create tools, what we call create tools, that are targeted at two main areas: the creation of new ideas, so we stimulate new ideas, also to capture existing ideas. So we're not saying that every idea that you've ever had before the challenge programme is a bad idea, but what we do want is to move from a place where they exist in people's minds to a place where they're valuable, they're now valuable to the company because we've captured them in a uniform way along with the new ideas, and then we can evaluate and decide which ones to move forward with. And once we've done that, from the rest of the process, we use a bunch of communicate tools, and we start the definition process. So we define the idea much more robustly. So it's just a few words on a card at the idea stage, and you may interpret that idea differently from me. But at the define stage, we've got absolute definition of what that idea is all about. You can see some of the dot points there, but for some of the things that we might look at. Then after that, we use commercialized tools to start driving the idea to points of failure or driving the idea closer to the marketplace. We do the fail fast, fail cheap that we mentioned before. It becomes more robust in each of those three areas: product, performance, and business model. We apply the fail fast, fail cheap process. We highlight death threats. And once what ideas that survive that process, so we're trying to kill them basically, but once ideas survive and evolve, then they're extremely strong, and that's when the proper money comes in to properly develop the idea. So what that means is that where before you might have been in a situation where spending time and money on ideas just at the idea stage, so at that left-hand side of the funnel, now what we're saying is you're only spending real time and real money when the ideas are extremely robust because they have survived that fail fast, fail cheap process. You might even have an existing product launch process, a linear one, like lean product development, stage gate, design Six Sigma. These things all sort of kick in at this stage. The last one is fail fast, fail cheap, so we still prefer to use it at that stage, but with just more time and more budget. Finally, you launch it to the market, and the whole thing is typically about 6 times faster and 30 to 80% less risky, depending on what you've done before, if you've had any system at all or not. So clearly, the time scales depend on your business, but typically, on average, you're looking at about a third of your time spent in the discover phase with about 5% of the budget, and about 2/3 of the time and 95% of the budget in the develop phase. So again, just reinforcing that notion that all the time and money is being spent once the idea is strong at that develop stage. Some other more advanced things you might learn about the pipeline management of your innovation idea pipeline. So a bit like some organisations do with sales. If your strategic objective from innovation is to earn an extra £10 million next year, then and you look at your pipeline of ideas and say you've got £10 million worth of ideas there, then you're probably going to fail at that objective because we know not all of them are going to work. You'd be very, very fortunate if all of them work. So clearly probability is a factor then, and when you start to apply probability to the ideas in your pipeline and their value, and this sort of reduced normalised valuation for your pipeline, once that number meets or exceeds your objectives, then you've got a chance. So if you want to value the ideas, there's some key metrics that you can use, and here's some takeaway metrics you can have a think about. So clearly, the number of potential customers is a factor, so how big is the market? Strength of concept persuasion, so that is to say, when that market or when those customers hear about the idea, what proportion of them are likely to be persuaded to buy? Your own marketing capability or budgets, we talk about aware and able. It might be a great concept, really compelling, people love it when they hear it. How many of them are actually going to hear it? So if you've got a consumer product and it's a really dispersed audience, and actually, it's a huge market, but in order to make the customers aware that it exists, you have to be in primetime television in 40 countries, and you can't afford that. Well, this is a major factor. First purchase revenue, repeat purchase revenue, the frequency of those things, and obviously the lifespan of the customers are just some of the metrics that we might use, and your confidence in all of those. Other things to consider: strategic fit. So great idea, but it takes the company in this direction, and we actually want to go in this direction, so clearly that's a factor. And internal passion for the idea. You'll think this is really the first time you hear it. We've seen this. It's a real thing. We've been guilty as innovation specialists to to know the success metrics very well and push people towards an idea that we thought was better versus the one that they liked the most. And the inevitable happens and it dies and they work on the one that they're excited about anyway. So passion for ideas is the difference between people driving ideas to failure or finding ways around problems as they encounter them. So if people are passionate about something, they'll find a way to make it work. It's a very real factor and you should definitely leverage this in your business. So just to summarise that whole section, so that's the end of that section of the presentation, with some summary points. New product, services, customers and markets that you're not delivering today are the fastest way to achieve significant business growth. Meaningfully, dramatically different products and services are the route to higher profit margins. Consistently faster, less risky growth from innovation requires an objective and reproducible system. Remember, human gut feel has a poor record of success. Utilise real-world test and learn to reduce levels of unknown. That's what decorator is, remember, and therefore risk. Kill poor ideas quickly, accelerate and evolve winners. Focus on the biggest issues first, so those major death threats, bring them to the fore. One thing I've not mentioned is diversity, but this is a very real thing. So when we set up an innovation team in the business, we don't want a bunch of engineers or a bunch of finance people or a bunch of anything, frankly. Not that we've got anything against those people, but what we want is diversity. We want representation from all of these different frames of reference, mindsets, because that's what helps us to get to proper decisions very, very quickly. And finally, remember to leverage passion for ideas. This is an important factor. So, one thing to consider, once you go back to the business is, and I won't ask you to answer this just now, but if you do enter the workshop process, we do ask you to answer this question, is to confront reality. Where are you on this this curve? And this is the business life cycle curve. You may recognise it as what looks like a product life cycle curve also. So everyone's business, and you could go down to everyone's products and services, are somewhere along this line. This, on the left-hand side, the ones and twos is when you start your business with innovative new products and services, and 3 and 4 is when the market gets excited about it, and your business is growing, your profitability is growing. The hump is where the market forces are really starting to kick in, and people want a piece of that action and start to take chunks of your market away from you. You respond in kind, 6, 7, by cutting costs, so do your competitors, and all your businesses or products are only going in one direction. And then at the far right-hand side, if it's allowed to happen, is severe pain of death for your business. So the good news is that doesn't have to happen. What we're actually talking about is just after 5, around about there, a reboot exercise where another curve starts, and another one, ad infinitum. So have a think about where is our business on this curve. And challenge yourself, I would say. One of my colleagues did work with a company who said we're definitely 3 or 4, and he said, why is that? And they said, well, we've got this tiger team, this sort of innovation team that's been set up by the managing director, and when pressed to say, okay, what's your first task? And the answer came, we're being tasked with coming up with innovative ways of cutting costs. Right, okay, well, my colleague has some bad news for them. So have a think about that, go back to your business and have a think about that question. In terms of what you should recognise back in your business, if you are looking for parallels to wonder if this programme is actually for you, here's some things that you might look to recognise. So this programme has solutions for some of these areas. So if your business has tons of ideas that float around forever and nothing ever really happens to them, or perhaps commercialisation is painfully slow and takes a huge amount of time by expense of people. So remember, if you have a process, you can start to push the responsibility down the organisation. Your sector demands innovation, but we are bad at ideas. Ideas are always iterative. Me too. We follow the market and react to customer demand. Or we used to be innovative. So quite often we hear that from clients. We used to be innovative, but now we're fast approaching